9mm versus 45 ACP and my 5-inch pistols here. I'm going to test the 9mm and my 5-inch M&P 9 2.0 and the 45 ACP and my 5.3-inch Glock 41. So what I have today is our Federal Punch ammunition. So I get a lot of comments a lot of times that the 45 ACP is kind of a Fudd round. It's all Fudd lore. It doesn't do better than the 9mm. So I thought, let's do some testing of different ammunition to see, how does the 45 ACP really stack up against the 9mm. I was going to do this first test with Federal HST, but I found it impossible to find the 9mm version locally because I wanted to test the 230 grain plus P and our 45 ACP. And I picked up a box of that, but I could not find the HST 124 grain plus P anywhere. So I'm going to wait on that until I can acquire that ammo. But I'm really curious, a lot of people say a lot of stuff about how nowadays 9mm is better than 45 ACP and stuff like that. So I just want to put these to the test in my current ballistic test protocol and see how they compare. So our 9mm is rated at 1150 feet per second. Our 45 ACP rated at 890 feet per second. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test. So we're going to go into plain clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are. I started doing that because when I would test with denim, I would always get, not always, but a lot of times I would get the hollow points clogged with denim, and I would never see what those hollow points were supposed to look like expanded. So I started doing a plain clear ballistics shot to get expansion, to see what they look like. And then I'll do more of a real world simulation, which is going to be 4 layers of sweatshirt material in this first 3-inch piece that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting ribs or sternum. That'll be our real world simulation. So we'll do a clear ballistic shot with both of those calibers and then a real world simulation shot with both of them. And then I'll shoot at the steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and recoil control and all that I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, if I didn't mention it, our 9mm is a 124 grain and the 45 ACP is a 230 grain. Our 9mm is rated at 1150 feet per second, but that's through a 4-inch barrel, as where our 45 ACP is rated at 890, and it is through a 5-inch barrel. So we should get more than 1150 feet per second in this 5-inch pistol here. So let's see what we get with our 9mm. I'm about 5 yards from that target. See what kind of velocity and accuracy we get going on. 1194, 1182, 1185, 1194, 1173. So 124 grain. That's getting pretty close to a plus P power. Well, not quite, but it's not bad velocity overall. That's about like a 124 grain plus P out of a 4-inch barrel, but this is a standard pressure, so I guess that makes sense. Now 45 ACP, rated at 890 feet per second. I am using my KKM barrel here because it has more traditional button style rifling. I think that makes a difference for my accuracy. I've tested this round a couple times with different barrels, and both times I got like 860, 875 with various barrels. But I'm hoping to get more than that today, like maybe Federal has upped their game and made the round a little better than it used to be. But let's see how close I can get to 890 through my 5.3-inch barrel here. 897, 911, 875, 868, 874. So at first I thought they really upped their game, but then the rest of those averages kind of brought it down to where, it's pretty similar to about the 875 I was getting before, maybe a little bit more. But it's pretty close to the rate of velocity, so I won't complain too much. So let's hit our ballistics gel block, see how these compare. All right, our best potential shot in the plain clear ballistics. Let's see what we get with our 9mm. All right, let's hit that with our 45 ACP. Let's go take a look. All right, some differences there, but not as big of a difference as what I thought I might see. A very similar penetration. Our our 45 rolled back a little bit in that channel, and I typically see that whenever I see it roll back several inches, it typically means that bullet has expanded over 65/100ths of an inch. I've noticed that. But what we see going on here in our first 3 inches, our energy dump on the 9mm on the bottom, 45 on top. Honestly, both look about the same. It looks like a little bigger with our 45 in one area, but then the entirety of that 3 inches pretty much the same with both of these. Looks like we got the block moved a little bit from the impacts there. So really good damage straight along that path. And this is something with 9mm that lacks a lot of times, that I've noticed that the Federal Punch actually kind of fixes, and the fact that we have a lot of good tearing and cutting right away. A lot of 9mm won't energy dump that well, but this appears to do that. Now what we got for our penetration is spot on at 16 inches, and we have good expansion. Our 45 ACP, I'm guessing it expanded over 65/100ths of an inch from that rollback, but we got just a little bit less than the 9mm at about 15 3/4. So at this point in plain clear ballistics, both of them look equal to me pretty much. Yeah, I'd say both did pretty well. Now let's put on our denim, put in our MDF, see if that shows any more differences with these. All right, our real world simulation, 4 layers of fabric, sweatshirt material. I might have said denim, but sweatshirt material, 4 layers, 3 inches of clear ballistics, a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent hit our ribs. Let's see how our 9mm does. All right, let me set that back up and we'll hit it with the 45 ACP. All right, more of our real world simulation, 45 ACP. Let's see what this does. Let's go take a look. All right, so both did pretty well. A little bit more energy dump in that first 3 inches with our 9mm. When we look at our 45 on top, there's not a whole lot of what looks like energy dump, but there is on the bottom with the 9mm. And that kind of makes sense. You know, you're moving a lot faster with a lighter bullet. I do notice when the bullets impact this front of this first gel block, they really rip into it more than typical. Really big hole going on there. And when we look at our medium density fiberboard here, not a big difference here between the 45 and the 9mm as far as expansion goes through this. So what that's going to tell you is that, you know, percentage wise, the 9mm is expanding a little bit more in that first 3 inches, which, you know, is confirmed by that. More damage there. As where our 45 is probably only starting to expand, and then it expands a little bit more as it goes along that path there. So what we got with our 9mm is still fantastic performance. We have really good damage in there, really good tearing. We got a penetration of 17 inches. Now our 45 ACP, actually, once it gets past that first 3 inches, there's actually quite a bit more of a larger track and more damage and more MDF pieces and a little more damage overall along that path. We got a slight amount of over penetration of about 18 3/4, but honestly I don't count that because it's clear ballistics, which is a little less dense than the organic gel that the 18-inch maximum is for. So honestly, that's not over penetration. So looking at both of these, you know, it's really hard for me to say one did a lot better than the other. Consistency wise, it looks like the extra velocity of the 9mm expanded those the hollow points a little bit more consistently. As where our 45 ACP, it looks like the expansion is a little bit different between the plain clear shot and through the MDF. But I'm going to say overall damage does look like the 45 did a little bit better than the 9mm here. Not a lot better, but a little bit better. So let's pull these out of the block. We'll take a close-up look at them. Then I'll shoot our steel, see what kind of practical accuracy I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through plain gel. Our 9mm and our 45 ACP. Really fantastic expansion, really consistent expansion overall with our 9mm. That looks quite good. Very similar to a Federal HST, has a banded core in there. Our 45 ACP, obviously a little bit bigger. Really fantastic expansion overall. I really like the looks of that. quite a bit bigger than that 9mm. Now when we go through our medium density fiberboard, here is our 9mm. This is very typical of what you see with 9mm. I actually tested this recently through a shorter barrel, and while we got this type of expansion through our plain gel, going through our medium density fiberboard, we actually had kind of a weird expansion where the petals expanded out and didn't peel back. And in that test I said, I think if we put a little more velocity on that with a longer barrel, that probably would peel them back as well, and it appears that it has. Got our P on the back for punch. Really consistent. I really like that because there's not much difference between both of those, and that will indicate that you have a lot harder petals than something like a gold dot. Gold dot changes significantly between plain gel and our MDF. I think the HST is far superior because those hard petals tend to stay very consistent. Now our 45 ACP going through the medium density fiberboard. This is kind of what I saw when I did that previous test with the 9mm. When I didn't get quite enough velocity, they stuck out really far. And in that test I said, I'd rather see them peel back for more consistency. That being said, really huge petals sticking out, causing a ton of damage is not a bad thing. So even though this isn't quite as consistent as our 9mm, I'm going to still say that's pretty darn good performance. So our 9mm is a little more consistent with its extra velocity. Our 45 ACP, I would say, is a little more effective and caused a little more damage overall. So that's a close-up look at those. All right, 12 yards from the target. So I just want to see what kind of shootability these have as far as, recoil control and how fast I can land them on target. A lot of people say that the 45 ACP has so much recoil that it's impossible to make follow-up shots. From my point of view, I don't see a huge difference there, but there is a little bit of a difference there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a sight picture and line these up before I start shooting. I'm not going to go from the holster and see what I do because that might skew these results, because one little thing like difference of sights can make one faster than the other. But I'm going to get a nice sight picture. I'm going to line it up center, fire off some shots as fast as I think I can hit the target. So 9mm, let's see how I can do it with this. A little bit of muzzle jump, but very easy to control. 45 ACP. See how I can do it with this. All right. A little bit more time to get down on target. But one thing I noticed about the 45 ACP is it's mostly a muzzle jump, extra recoil type thing. It's not like a lot of extra recoil that makes you flinch. It's more just a little bit more muzzle rise. So you just have to time it a little bit differently to get it back down on target. Other than that, the recoil isn't there's not a huge difference between both of these, to be honest. So let me paint that up. I'll back it up, see how these continue to shoot from me from a little more distance. All right, 75 yards from the target. I came back this far, so you can brace yourself for some useless information. I pretty much do this just for fun. But there is a thing where, even though these both had similar energy up close, when you go over a distance like 75 yards, you actually lose a lot more of your energy with 9mm and a 124 grain versus a 230 grain 45 ACP. So I just like to see it play out and see the difference between energies there. Also, historically, I've generally been a little more accurate at distance with 45 ACP. That might have something to do with 9mm going from supersonic to subsonic. I don't really know if that's an actual real thing that affects a bullet that much, but let's see what I can do with these. 9mm, fire slow, really try to hit this target best I can. 9mm. All right, I'm going home. I'll take that. A little bit higher than my point of aim. I'll aim a little lower. All right, so I'm really liking what I'm seeing with Federal Punch in the 9mm. Everything about it is really, really good out of this pistol anyways. And it's only like a $20 box ammo, so honestly really good performance for that. Now I don't know if it's going to perform quite this well out of a 4-inch barrel, but out of a 3.2 inch I actually tested it recently. It did pretty well also. So 45 ACP, let's see how this stuff does, see if it hits the steel any harder for me. Well, a little bit of feeding issue there. That could just be this KKM barrel. It doesn't have quite as big of a chamber. It's not fully supported, but the KKM is, so that could be why that happened. Keep going. Alright, so both of those shot really well for me. It's rare for me to not have a miss from here. Both these pistols have always historically shot pretty well for me. So both of them are very accurate. Not a huge, more of an impact on steel with the 45 than the 9mm, but there was just a little bit. And again, the recoil wasn't that bad. It's just a little more muzzle jump. There is slightly more actual recoil other than muzzle jump, but it's not significant. And by the way, I weighed both of these pistols. This particular 9mm actually weighs 4 ounces more than this 45 ACP. It's something like, I want to say 20, I don't know the actual weight, but I did weigh him. I remember the weight when I weighed him with a loaded magazine, and our 9mm weighed 2 pounds and 5 ounces. Our 45 fully loaded weighed 2 pounds 4 ounces, so 1 ounce lighter. And you know, the more ammo you bring out of that magazine, the 45, you know, the bigger the difference is there. But overall, both of these are very shootable. So looking at 9mm versus 45 ACP, this is a debate that's been going on for a really long time. And I have no problem with people loving the 9mm and, you know, having ammo companies make better and better 9mm. That's a great thing. What I don't like is when people will just say, well, because of that, it's now better than the 45 ACP, when historically the 45 ACP, and even now, is a superior cartridge. And then I get a lot of people that will argue capacity. Well, you know, 17 plus 7. They always say 7 or 8 with the 45 ACP, and it's like modern polymer pistols. A Glock 17 holds 17 plus 1. A Glock 21 or 41 holds 13 plus 1. You know, there's a 4-round difference of capacity, and you know, generally real world situations are less than 5 shots to resolve that. A lot of these 9mm fanboys will tell you that basically every self-defense scenario is like 12 armed guys around you, and somehow the capacity of a 9mm will get you out of that, but the 45 can't. And this is kind of a silly argument there, but looking at both of these though, I will say the 9mm did hold its own against this 45 ACP. But you know, there's a little bit going on with the 45 ACP that's hard to really quantify in ballistics shell. If you look at a lot of the old school numbers, what you see is 45 tends to be quite a bit higher for stopping threats than 9mm, even with the best jacketed hollow points versus the best jacketed hollow points between the two calibers. It does seem like 45 is just a little bit better. You know, it's not a lot better, but it's a little bit better. And that's kind of why, you know, you have a little bit more recoil. So between both of these, yeah, the 45 is better. But the 9mm, if you get the right load and the right barrel length, it's pretty good too. So enough rambling there. Interesting test. Both did pretty well. So that's what you get today with our Federal Punch 9mm versus 45 ACP, both standard pressure. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.